Hello, Internet friend. Today on Value Side, the world responds to American tariffs and sanctions. I'm David Ravel. Well, very often our government leaders present complex issues in the simplest possible terms. That has certainly been the case with American tariffs. The Trump administration tells us that tariffs are a one-time transaction. The United States imposes an import tax on our trade partners, collects the revenue, and that's that. Simple, straightforward, and direct. Since President Trump announced the imposition of global trade tariffs on April 2nd, the administration has been quick to point out the additional revenue coming into the U.S. Treasury. It appears to be a highly positive event where tariffs translate into added revenue for the federal government, something that we desperately need. However, it's only now that we're beginning to feel the added pinch of this new import tax, because it takes time for imports to reach American ports, be transported to local stores and shops, and it has taken this long for us to see those new tariff-laden goods. Labor Day weekend was the beginning of what we anticipated will be a sustained elevation in price due to tariffs. And regrettably, we're only at the first chapter of what will likely to be a very long story, one that may have a profound financial influence on us all. This same Labor Day weekend, when many of us here in the U.S. were taking advantage of those back-to-school sales, halfway around the world, leaders were meeting and shaping a new economic order. The event was the Shanghai Cooperation Summit. At that meeting were the leaders of the two most populous countries in the world, Xi Jinping of China and Narendra Modi of India, in addition to Vladimir Putin of Russia, and joining them were the leaders from Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey, Brazil, and many others. A combination that is often referred to as the Global South. Collectively, while these countries do not have as substantial an economy as the Global West, headed by the United States, they nevertheless have a larger population and greater natural resources. And for the first time in their 25-year history, they have a common foe, the United States, and its newly implemented tariffs. Although he wasn't mentioned by name, President Donald Trump cast a long shadow over these proceedings. China's Xi was obviously referring to Trump's new trade restrictions when he said, quote, "We must continue to take a clear stand against the hegemony and power politics and practice true multilateralism." And this call for multilateralism became the byword for the conference. Nations coming together to forge a new economic order, one that will likely exclude America and the West. And this wasn't idle chatter. China's Xi and Russia's Putin signed no fewer than 22 economic and strategic agreements that revolutionized entirely their relationship. Among these agreements were a joint venture to explore the moon, provide China with additional agricultural products, and 3 agreements to supply China with Russian natural gas. Its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative will provide transportation infrastructure to 150 countries globally. Projects have already begun in Asia, Africa, and South America. Brazil especially has already benefited from a proposed rail system that will transport goods from the Atlantic region to the Pacific, cutting days off shipping time to China ports. While still years from completion, this project demonstrates China's willingness to cooperate with Brazil. So when President Trump announced tariffs aimed at Brazil's agricultural products, it took little time for Brazil to turn to its other market, China. The result has been a precipitous drop in U.S. ag exports to China and utter devastation for American farmers. Now, none of this would have come as a surprise to economist Charles Kindleberger. Born in 1910, Professor Kindleberger was a young man when the Great Depression descended upon America. He would go on to write what is perhaps the most authoritative book on economic and financial causes of that calamity, the world in depression. In it, Kindleberger points out that the Smoot-Hawley tariffs of 1929 was only the beginning of a process precipitated by the introduction of American tariffs. The process would include a counter-reaction by countries around the globe. For years, the United States has used trade restrictions as a primary strategy to curtail unwanted behavior in other countries. In addition to tariffs, which makes overseas products more expensive, we have also imposed outright sanctions, which most often prohibit trade or commercial interaction entirely. Many of these sanctions have been imposed on the leaders attending the Shanghai Cooperation Summit. For 35 years, we have sanctioned the Bank of Russia and Vladimir Putin personally for actions by Russian oligarchs, as well as sanctioning China for both their actions in Hong Kong and their actions against racial minorities. In short, we've made it clear that America stands on the other side of a global commercial divide. President Trump has made that divide virtually indivisible. He apparently believes that tariffs are just another transaction, a premium for the privilege of selling offshore goods to the American consumer. Unfortunately for President Trump and for America, there's much more to this tariff story. Trump may have written the preface, but the rest of this tariff story is yet to be written, and we will not be its author. This weekend, from faraway Shanghai, came the news that the rest of the globe is finding a workaround to the American economic hegemony. And that's today's Value Side. For all of our references and podcasts, visit valueside.com. I'm David Revell. ValueSide is independently written and researched. The views expressed are strictly my own.